Hey everyone, so today we're going to talk about PHP and is it a still relevant language in 2020? So the short answer is yes. PHP is kind of in a weird situation where even though it is used in most of the websites on the internet, some people still kind of have a love-hate relationship with PHP, and most of it is because of his past history. If somebody was trying to get into the industry today, or he's a fresher out of the college, or somebody who's working with front end and trying to get into backend development and is looking for his option, like PHP, Ruby on Rails, or you know Python, Django, or something like that. So if you think that PHP is not relevant in 2020, I think it's very wrong to assume that, because PHP is still relevant, and all the other worries you might have about PHP, I'm going to talk about those things. So first thing people talk about PHP is that you can write really bad code in PHP because the barrier to entry is so low, so people tend to write bad code. But I think it is true for any language. Like even if you write Node.js or Python, you can still write bad code in it. It won't look that bad on the surface level, but you can still write bad code in Python and Node.js. And same is true for PHP also. Like you can still write bad code. And in PHP after version 5, things become really interesting. And if you are writing code these days in PHP, you will most probably not write core PHP, like vanilla PHP and just writing everything from scratch. You most probably will be using a framework, and most popular framework in PHP is Laravel. And let me tell you, like Laravel, if you write code in Laravel, you won't even recognize that it is PHP. Like the Laravel, the code structure and everything is so well organized that it forces you to write good code. So you have a lot of options if you're starting out with PHP these days. You have Laravel, you have CodeIgniter, you have Symfony. All these frameworks tend to allow, they give you the structure, the framework for writing good code, and they kind of force you to write good code. And it's a good thing. So you kind of learn head first how to write good code, and as you go along you will come back and learn about all these design patterns and how to write clean code and all those things. So it's a good thing to start with PHP these days, especially with the framework like Laravel and Symfony and all those things. And another thing is, if you're a freelancer, if you're thinking about going with freelancing, then PHP is also another good choice, because of obviously WordPress and Joomla and um, all those like platforms, and Magento and Shopify and all those things. So as a freelancer, PHP is a no-brainer, because you should choose PHP because it's so easy to write an application as a freelancer using PHP. And as far as your job, looking for PHP job goes, there are more jobs in PHP than any other language, I think, in my area. So that's another thing you have to take into consideration when looking for jobs, that where you want to work in geographically, and which companies do you want to work in, and what kind of projects you want to work in. That also is a deciding factor in choosing a language. Other than that, you should not look at a language because it is better than another language, because most backend languages are similar, so if you invest your time in one language, you can transfer those skills in another language easily. So if you start out with PHP, you can easily switch to Node.js or Python. That's not an issue. So you should not think about if I choose this language, then I am if it is not relevant in coming years, then I'll be screwed. No, you can transfer you can switch to any other backend language if you go in depth in any language, if your fundamentals are strong. So that should not be a concern. And coming back to performance thing in PHP, I think people bash PHP. I think Python is much slower in compared to PHP. So, and other than that, after PHP, and after PHP 5, there has been a lot of performance improvements in PHP. There are preloading, and there are JIT compilers and everything, which is a great thing for PHP, and which what it tells you that PHP is not going anywhere in the coming years, and it will only grow popular, and it will always have this niche area where it is wanted. If you're starting out with PHP 7, then you're in a very really good spot, because there has been a lot of improvements in syntax and writing, the way the code is structured and code is written. So there has been a lot of improvements after PHP 5. So you should not judge PHP based on previous history of PHP, because PHP has come a long way, and it is quite mature language, and you should go with mature languages, like frameworks or languages that are mature and well tested, because going with the trend is really not a great idea, because languages and frameworks come and go all the time. So those languages, which stood the test of time, I think are good bet, because they're much stable and the community is much larger, and there is more help you can take from the internet, and the you can bet that there is good documentation and everything, which should be a concern of you if you're starting out with the language. So I think in 2020 PHP is still a good language and still a relevant language. So I think you will not make a wrong decision if you go with PHP in 2020, in my opinion.